Here's the starting grid for the 107th running of the Indy 500. Alex Palou takes pole position for the first ever time. Alongside him is Venus Vique and Felix Rosenquist on the first row of the grid. Row 2 sees Santino Ferrucci in the number 14 start 4th. Pato O'Ward starts in 5th position as well. And Scott Dixon, who won this race back in 2008, starts in 6th position. Watch out for this row as well. We could be seeing the winner from row number 2. Row 3 sees Alexander Rossi, Takuma Sato and Tony Kanaan. All winners previously of the Indy 500 as well. Tony Kanaan making his final start in this race. Watch out for Sato and Rossi on the charge late in the race. Row 4 sees Marcus Ericsson, last year's winner, start in 10th. Benjamin Pedersen is 11th and Will Power starts back in 12th position. A poor show from the Penskes as well in qualifying. He's on a fight back charge. Row 5 sees Ed Carpenter in his 20th appearance at this race. Alongside him is Scott McLaughlin in 14th. Kyle Kirkwood lines up 15th on the grid as well for Andretti, looking to bounce as well from an earlier season win in Long Beach. Row 6 sees Connor Daly start 16th. Joseph Newgarden starts in 17th, way out of position and looking to make a charge. Ryan Hunter-Reay starts 18th on the grid as well in the number 23 as he makes his one only race appearance in the year. Row 7 sees Romain Grosjean out of position again in 19th as well. Helio Castroneves starts 20th as well as he goes for a 5th win here at the Brickyard. Colton Herta no longer with Brian Herta this weekend. Paul qualifies 21st. Row 8 sees Simon Pagenaud in 22nd, David Malukas is in 23rd, and Marco Andretti lines up 24th on the grid. On row 9, again, some surprising appearances as well late on in the qualifying format. Devlin DiFrancesco home as well. Everybody loving this guy back home. It's Agustin Canapino, the young Argentine driver, in 26th. Callum Milot battling away in qualifying as well, only managed 27th position. 10th row of the grid sees RC Anderson 28th. Catherine Legg, the fastest ever woman in history here at the Brickyard, 231 miles per hour, 29th. Christian Lundgaard starts 30th as well in the number 45. On row 11, the last row of the grid and making bunt day was Stingray Robb and Jack Carvey. With Stefan Wilson crashing, it is now back in the race. 33rd and last for Graham Rahal. Bumped and back in again. We send our best to Stefan Wilson. It's the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500. We welcome you to Grid Network's pre-race show.
Thank you so much, Josh. Welcome, everyone. Grid Live pre-race Indianapolis 500, one of the greatest days in motorsports. Joe Samaniego here along with Ben Schneider and Kobe Lambeth from the podium finish. We encourage everyone, share your comments, opinions, questions with us on the air. We'll love to share your opinions as well. And of course, if you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell icon because we've got a busy week of motorsports. And every week we're on the air with more motorsports program. All thanks to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark and Robin, for keeping us on the air. And our folks that Buy Me a Coffee. You could buy coffee for us on the Grid Network or for a particular on-air person right here. Show your support for the Grid Network and for all of us here that are on the air providing you motorsports coverage. And gentlemen, this is the big race weekend, of course, the Indianapolis 500, the biggest spectacle of all of motorsports. A historic month of May always, and we got some prehistoric feats to talk about, including up in the front row where, Ben, if Alex Palou was to get this win, it could be very historic for him.
That's right, Joe. Alex Palou starting on pole. He won the GMR Grand Prix of Indianapolis and is one of the favorites today. The pole sitter has won the Indy 500 19 times, and Palou has some interesting stats. If he becomes number 20, he become a third driver and first non-Penske driver to win both the Indy Grand Prix and Indianapolis 500 in the same month of May. The second driver to win both races from the front row. He'd be the first pole winner since Simon Pagenaud in 2019, the first driver since 2015 to enter the Indy 500 with a points lead, win the 500, and of course keep the points lead. That was Juan Pablo Montoya, but he ended up losing that 2015 championship on a tiebreaker with Scott Dixon, and Palou would be the first repeat winner of the 2023 season. So Kobe, we'll start with you. Considering he's still very likely heavily rumored and linked to switch to McLaren after this year, seeing how impressive Palou has been, could an Indy 500 win complicate his future plans for 2024 and beyond?
I'm not sure at all, Ben. I guess that's a question for Alex Below, Chip Ganassi, and Zach Brown to figure out. And I know since the contract drama last year, and see how they were able to move past that for Pelot to run with Ganassi this year. The one of the worst kept secrets in the IndyCar package. Pelot is more than likely going to be an Aaron McLaren driver in the NTT IndyCar Series next year. But as I've said on one of our most recent shows, as well as Alex Pelot has been running with Chip Ganassi Racing, why you need to fix what ain't broke? In all honesty, because that number 10 team is hitting on all cylinders right now. The chemistry that they have right now is absolutely amazing, and I'm just more in awe that, considering everything that happened last year and how we've progressed to this year, Chip Ganassi Racing, Alex Pelot have been able to mend fences, keep it all professional and move forward with their business. And you'd think after something like that would go down, that the team would be broken, and it would be really hard for them to compete at such a high level. But kudos to all parties involved for, as I said, for being all professional and making sure this chemistry continues to go, because I have a feeling with most drivers and teams, when they've been involved in a messy contract dispute, the chemistry probably wouldn't be there anymore. But right now, this is one of the hottest teams in the NTT IndyCar Series right now. And Alex Pelot and Chip Ganassi, they're probably gonna be one of the favorites to win this race today in the Indianapolis 500, and Pelot will probably be one of the favorites to win the championship at the end of the year. It's just really stunning to me how you could leave such a good situation right now at Chip Ganassi Racing if I'm Alex Pelot.
Alex Pelot, that Chip Ganassi Racing team, after last year, with all the drama going on with, is he a McLaren driver? Is he going to be a Chip Ganassi driver? Going winless until that last race of the year at Laguna Seca, I thought this was going to be a lame duck year. This has really turned into, I think, the Pelot we saw in that first year when he won the championship with Chip Ganassi Racing. The potential is there to be a championship favorite. He's already leading the points, got to win earlier at the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. I just see everyone's chasing that team right now. I don't see why making the move will really benefit. Of course, we all have our different opinions of, the benefits of joining McLaren, connections to F1, better seats, maybe a better opportunity in IndyCar, but just Chip Ganassi Racing, he likes winners. Alex Pelot's winning. If he gets this win, I think Chip Ganassi is going to try to put up a little bit more effort. Like, hey, why do you want to go there? You just won the Indy 500. You should stick here with Honda. Everyone here that has helped you in your career. Why go to Chevrolet? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this race. I think Pelot, if he runs a perfect race, he has the car, in my opinion, to win this race. I don't think he's going to need luck. Some of the other drivers will. I think if he has that good, clean race, Pelot is going to be in victory lane today.
I can't help but think back to 2016 when Alexander Rossi won the 500, and I think a lot of people were expecting him to just kind of take a year in IndyCar so that he was racing something so that he could get back to Formula One, possibly with Manor or another team in 2017. Then he goes out and wins the 500, and I think in the minds of a lot of people that was going to springboard him back over to Europe to race in Formula One, but what it did was actually complicate things and made him really realize that this is where he wanted to be and see out the rest of his career, and he's done just that, of course, with Andretti for several years, and now over at McLaren, and he and Pelot, I suppose, may be teammates next year. We'll just have to wait and see, but I certainly think that if Pelot wins the 500 today, and if he backs it up with another championship as well at the end of the season, I think it's really going to complicate things, because like you mentioned, Kobe, why would you fix what isn't broken here? This is one of the top teams and top partnerships in IndyCar right now. I don't see why they'd want to mess that up, but maybe McLaren has an offer Pelot simply can't refuse. We'll wait and see what happens over there. Let's talk about another young driver that's starting, first let's go to some of the comments here. Massimiliano says, I hope Dixon can finally drink the milk, but I think this race is cursed for him. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Dixon later on. He easily could have won the last couple of 500s. He's had so much speed, has sat on pole so many times, but still looking for his first 500 since his only win in 2008. So we'll keep an eye on him. Now let's talk about Rinus VeeKay. His only top 10 finish in the 3 years he's run the 500 was back in 2021, the same year he won the Indy Grand Prix earlier in the month. This year, he has his worst start of the season with no top 10 finishes. He's had his worst start of the IndyCar season, I should say, with no top 10 finishes so far. He's 18th in the points. Betting odds today have him listed at plus 1,200. He's not a top 5 favorite, But Joe, do you believe VK could still be well positioned and have the potential to win this race?
He has the potential to win this race. He needs to put together a good race, not get into any trouble. Last year was out early, very tough break. I feel he is the kind of driver, he has the talent, he has the speed. Just keep your head cool. Don't make any mistakes on the track. Of course, that's really hard when you're going over 200 miles per hour right on the edge of control. The team, that's where I feel they're going to really have to step up because we've seen that team has been not delivering nothing all year long. They have to step it up. I think there's going to be extra pressure to try to step it up in the biggest race of the year to Indianapolis 500. A lot of room for errors. Everyone's going to be perfect. Ed Carpenter's there racing as well too. He's going to be really watching and learning throughout the race. Hey, how's VK doing? How's the other team doing? Because he wants to know if they're contending for a win as well. VK, I think he has the potential to win. He just has to put together everything to get there. That's why I think the Vegas automakers are seeing him as a bit of a long shot. But if he could do everything, he could be fine for the win.
Yeah, I certainly think Rinus VK has the equipment under him to win the Indy 500, but it's just a matter of putting the whole race together. And that's one of the biggest issues we've seen so far in Rinus VK's IndyCar career, where he'll have a good car, but it's the matter of putting together a complete race. If Rinus VK can put together a complete race today and be at the right place at the right time, I don't see why he can't be one of the contenders to win this year's in Indianapolis 500. But sometimes, I think he pushes a little too hard and makes a mistake, and then it's game over. So I certainly think that Rinus could be one of the contenders if he gets all of that straightened out. And also, he really needs to have a good day today because it's been such an inconsistent start to the IndyCar season for him. Seemed like Ed Carpenter Racing is taking a big step back with their IndyCar program, and we always know they bring fast cars for the month of May, and we'll see if they can right the ship today.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Kobe, Ed Carpenter Racing, another team that you can never count out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because they always bring fast cars here. This is the one race a year where we really see that speed come out, so we'll see if VK can get the job done today. Now let's round out the front row with Felix Rosenqvist, the fastest McLaren at the end of qualifying. All the McLarens were fast, though, with Pato O'Ward starting 5th. In the middle of the second row, Alexander Rossi right behind in 7th, and Tony Kanaan in what is almost certainly going to be his last Indianapolis 500 in the 9th position. The McLaren team has been fast throughout May and had a great Indy Grand Prix earlier this month. However, in the 500, we rarely see a team sweep the top 2 or 3 positions. So, Kobe, I'll pose this question over to you. Is McLaren in a position where they could potentially have all of their drivers running 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or is the competition just too stiff for that to happen?
Well, looking at how strong Arrow McLaren's been so far during the month of May, I wouldn't put it past them to have all their drivers running 1, 2, 3, and 4 at some point during the race. Do I think that's how they'll finish? Probably not, because you mentioned competition very, very stiff. And looking at the weather conditions today, I think it's going to be perfect for this package. I know a lot of the drivers have been thinking that we're probably going to see a lot more cautions than we typically do because of how close they're running together. I think that Will Powersay thinks the competition is going to be really still. He said fierce. We're going to see fierce racing today with the changes that they made to make the cars fall a lot easier. And looking at the weather forecast today, it's going to be in the 70s, overcast, and that's the perfect conditions for this IndyCar oval package to shine. So I think we could be in for a really great, entertaining race today. And getting back to McLaren, I certainly think they're going to be in the mix with 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 drivers. And then you mentioned about this certainly been Tony Kanaan's final Indy 500 potentially. Marco Andretti made a joke on Twitter when TK posted this morning about this being his last Indy 500. Marco Andretti was like, "When are you going to announce your 3-year contract extension?"
Tony Kanaan retirement, that seems to be something where people talk about, but then it's like he comes back, especially with the Indianapolis 500. He ran really well last year. If he gets another good run, I see Tony Kanaan coming back again to Indianapolis. Adam even says Tony Kanaan for the Indy 500 win. Why not? You're that confident? Definitely mention it and pick a winner later in the show, because Tony Kanaan for the Indy 500 is always one of the drivers to watch because they're always fast at this track. McLaren, they're looking fast, but I'm not convinced they have the speed to be running solidly 1, 2, 3, 4. I just see where the competition is fierce. Chip Ganassi Racing. Alex Palou has been really fast. We know what he could do, really runs well at this track. I'm also looking at Marcus Ericsson, the defending champion of this race, of course. Been up front all month long. Haven't been making much attention like Sato, Palou, everybody else. The sneaky Swede, he could definitely live up to that sneaky reputation. I think he could be up there battling with them. So overall, I think McLaren, they'll be up in the front, but I'm anticipating 2, maybe 3. I'm looking at Rossi, maybe Rosenquist. Award will be that third one. Kanan, I think he's going to run a smart race. So if he's a little bit in the top 10, maybe even 12th or 13th, he'll be in a good spot knowing just take care of the car, wait till the end of the race, because that's where it's going to matter the most. Leading at lap 200, 500 miles, that's where he wants to be first.
I think if Kanan wins, he's going to retire on the spot in victory lane. I think that's the perfect send-off for TK if he could do that. If he finishes, let's say, 3rd or 4th and is in contention and comes up just short, maybe the itch comes back and he's got to scratch it next year and run one more Indy 500. But we'll just have to wait and see. He sounds pretty committed this time. I know he said this before. As of right now, this is my last, or as of right now, I don't know if I'm going to be back next year. He seems to be convinced that this is going to be his last 500. But there's always time for him to change his mind, I suppose. So we'll wait and see what happens with TK. Let's move on here on our pre-race show. It's funny we talk about McLaren being so dominant. It reminds me of last year when Ganassi put all 5 of their cars into the top 12. Ganassi put 4 drivers into the Fast 12 this year. Will Power being the lone Penske down there in 12th, barely squeaking in. VK the only Ed Carpenter entry. Now the other 2 spots belong to AJ Foyt Racing. A little bit of a surprise there with Santino Ferrucci all the way up in 4th and Benjamin Peterson in 11th. An amazing effort by both of them and that team. Ferrucci was fast on the qualifying day, topping the Fast 12 round before the pole shootout. So, Kobe, is AJ Foyt Racing just a sentimental favorite, or do they have a legitimate chance to win the Indianapolis 500 today?
If you're a betting person in Las Vegas, I would strongly consider thinking about Santino Ferrucci and going with him. I think Santino could really be a dark horse to win this race because Santino has that top 10 finish streak in the Indy 500 to continue. And before the month of May, I said that given AJ Foyt's recent performances across IndyCar, probably that streak's probably going to come to an end. But coming to the Speedway, it seemed like AJ Foyt Racing is going to put all of their resources into this one race. And based on the performance we've seen from Ferrucci and Benjamin Peterson, I say they made the correct decision here, because I think if all the cards fall into place, Santino stays out of trouble, the crew on pit road do the work, Santino might really be a legitimate dark horse to win this race. I'm sure a lot of the racing fans who love AJ Foyt in that iconic number 14, if Santino crosses the yard of bricks first at the end of lap 200, I think there's going to be a lot of people really would be really excited. And when AJ Foyt on site, that would make it even more special and sentimental.
Yeah, with AJ Foyt on site, that is definitely the sentimental favorite. Santino Ferrucci, that top 10 streak, I easily see that continuing on. He has the car. He's very talented at this race. Knows how to avoid trouble. So if he doesn't get in trouble, he's going to be up there racing for the win. In my opinion, that is very real. For Benjamin Peterson, the rookie, I think he's just focusing on getting that top 10 finish, getting Rookie of the Year honors. That'll be huge for him and for AJ Foyt to have a driver to get the Rookie of the Year award. It's overall going to, I think, be a great effort for AJ Foyt Racing. Everyone had anticipated them to be sort of struggling at the beginning of the season. Season didn't start off right, but this could be a huge momentum boost to have both cars in the top 10 to finish. Yes, the win, that's something everybody would want. AJ Foyt would want that, but if both cars finish in the top 10, that's going to be huge for this team going forward and carrying some positive momentum. If we had double points, I know that'd be a huge points day, but no double points at this year Indy 500, just the regular points being allocated. Top 10 finish for AJ Foyt Racing, I think they'll come back saying a successful month of May.
Yeah, definitely don't count Santino Ferrucci out. He's been fast here his entire career, and AJ Foyt Racing certainly have brought some speed to IMS this year, so I would be on the lookout for them. And now I'll pass it over to Kobe as we continue on with our show.
And one team that wasn't in the Fast 12 was Andretti Autosport. The highest qualifying Andretti Honda was Kyle Kirkwood in 15th. Roman Grosjean is 19th on the inside of row 7. On the outside of row 7, Colton Herta in 21st and is 24th place for Marco Andretti on the outside of row 8. Finally, Devlin DeFrancesco is starting 25th on the inside of row 9. Joe, does any driver from Andretti Autosport have a real shot at the win? If so, which one? To be honest, I'm actually really surprised we haven't seen Andretti look as strong as they have been. I know entering this race, we really thought that Andretti would be in the mix, but so far they've been kind of muted.
Yeah, Andretti has been pretty quiet. Speeds are just not there. With this weather condition, the package they have, I do think Roman Grosjean is going to be up towards the front. We saw the potential at Texas Motor Speedway. Good, strong run, but towards the closing stages, just pushed it a little too hard. After last year, I think he has a better sense how hard to push the car. He'll be up front. Colton Herta, you can never count him out. But those are the only two Andretti cars I am anticipating. Definitely Francesco. He is just not showing the kind of performance he needs to again in his another season with Andretti Autosport. I'm really going to be wondering after this weekend if Devlin is not in the top 10, will some of those rumors start up of where he's going to go, who's going to be in that car next year. For Roman Grosjean, Colton Herta, those are the two that I'll be banking on in the top 10 easily.
I wouldn't count Kyle Kirkwood out either. I think Kyle's shown quite a bit of speed at times this year. And, the Andretti team, like you said, Joe, has certainly been a little bit quiet this year so far, which has been a little bit of a surprise because, we've always come to expect Andretti to have speed of this race, and they've won it several times in the not too distant past. So a little bit surprising that not even a single one of them made the Fast 12, but maybe they've gone all in on a race package and race pace, and maybe that'll show today. I did hear some comments actually from Marco Andretti a couple of days ago, and Marco said that if we can get to the front, we have a car that can stay in the front. It's just a matter of trying to get there from 24th on the grid. That might be a little bit too much of a challenge. So I don't think you can count Andretti out entirely. No disrespect to Devlin DeFrancesco. I would be very surprised if he can drive through from 25th to win the race, just based on what I've seen from him and that car over the last couple of years here. But I would not count any of the other Andretti entries out from potentially winning this race. This race is very, very fiercely competitive, and we've seen crazier things happen at IMS. I wouldn't count Andretti out from taking the win today.
And speaking of Devlin DeFrancesco, he had a very scary moment on Carb Day, running in front of a group of cars. He had a tire go down, and luckily all the drivers behind them were paying attention, or that could have been a really bad accident. And we also remember at Texas Motor Speedway, Devlin also had an issue with his car that almost caused Graham Rahal to go flying in the air there. But Ben, I totally agree with you. No disrespect to Devlin, but if I had to count out one Andretti Autosport driver winning the race, it would certainly be him. And I also saw those comments from Marco Andretti as well, saying if his car can get to the front, then they're gonna have a car capable of potentially winning this whole thing. And I know it's a lot harder to go from the back towards the front of the field in Indy 500, but anything is possible. Sometimes it can come down to the time of the caution. The caution could come out in your favor, and then you gain all that track position. We just have to wait to see how the race plays out there. But I do think if we have one Andretti Autosport driving contention, it would probably have to be Kyle Kirkwood. He certainly had a really strong car, and I agree with what Joe was saying about Roman Grosjean. We saw him crashing at 500 last year, and I certainly think that Grosjean has a better understanding of what it takes to get it done around the speedway here. And Colton Herta seems to be hit or miss at this place, and he'll certainly want this year to go a lot better than last year, because last year, as we were saying during our week-long programming here at Grid Network, Colton Herta's race basically ended on Carb Day when it ended up crashing and didn't have a chance to go test out the car, which was much slower and a whole bunch of problems going on there. So it'll be interesting to see what Andretti Autosport can accomplish today. And while Michael Andretti is hopeful for a big turnaround in the race, Team Penske is hopeful for a better performance in the race. Will Power was the only driver from Team Penske to make the Fast 12. Scott McLaughlin is in the middle of row 5 and 14th, and directly behind him is Joseph Newgarden, starting 17th. Ben, do you believe Team Penske has the speed to work towards the front?
It's an interesting question here, because I think that, ever since Roger Penske bought the Speedway, bought it the same year that Simon Pagenaud swept the month of May and won the Indy 500, I feel like ever since that November day, we haven't seen Penske show the same speed that we're accustomed to seeing from them in this race here. So, I know Will Power squeaked into the Fast 12. I think he's got some speed. I certainly wouldn't count him or McLaughlin or Joseph Newgarden out. I think all three of them certainly have a shot. This is really the only thing Joseph Newgarden still has left to do in his IndyCar career is win the Indianapolis 500. He's missing the biggest trophy in the sports, kind of like Lionel Messi missing the World Cup trophy before he finally got it a few months ago in Qatar. I know Newgarden is desperate to win this race, and he's got quite a challenge coming up in the middle of the pack. But I got to tell you, I'm not going to pick a Penske car to win the race, but you got three very talented racing drivers and a very strong organization here. They're kind of due for a strong run at IMS. We haven't really seen that from them over the last several years here. I think that they certainly have a chance. You can't count them out. But again, I think Ganassi or McLaren, that's probably where you're going to find your winner today. Andretti and Penske, I think, are kind of a little bit behind the pace that they've shown so far this month.
With Penske, I feel if they're up in the front, they could probably stay up there, particularly Will Power. Will Power, Fast 12. Of course, qualifying, the weather conditions were much different than what we're having today. I see that where if he could get towards the front, he'll be up there contending for the win. That team has the caliber, the potential, the experience to get it done. Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, they're a little bit further towards the back, still within the top 20, so that's a big plus for them. If they could just have a good, clean first run, gain positions, if we stay green all the way to the first round of pit stops, I see that's where you could really make up the ground by passing some cars, having fast pit stops, trying to gain positions through pit road. But that's what I think sort of the game plan they're going to be looking at, because they didn't exactly show the speed. They might have some more, but the big thing is that first stint for Newgarden, McLaughlin, I think will be the telltale sign of how their day is going to go.
Yeah, you guys mentioned Joseph Newgarden, and looking at Joseph Newgarden's IndyCar career, he's basically done absolutely everything there is to accomplish an IndyCar. But when the granddaddy of them all, the Indianapolis 500, and he's reached the point of his career now, as the years go on, where people are going to be saying, when is Joseph Newgarden ever going to win the Indianapolis 500? He certainly doesn't want to go his entire IndyCar career and be like the Indy 500 is the one that got away. And Ben, it is interesting, ever since Roger Penske took over the NTT IndyCar Series in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it really seems like Team Penske's taken a step back, not its IndyCar program overall, but certainly here at IMS. It's going to be interesting to see if the Team Penske race setup is going to work a lot better than what they had for qualifying. And Brother JP says good morning to all of us. Good morning, Brother JP. Really glad to have you here for our pre-race show today. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the Grid Network so you don't miss any of our future programming. And moving on, Ed Carpenter wishes he could have been in the Fast 12 but didn't make it, starting 13 according to Rena's VK. After that occurred, all the effort went into VK's car for a fast lap. 2018 was his best finish, a second place result, and last year he finished 19th. Is Ed Carpenter a legitimate contender for the win or just a pretender?
I think I'm going to be a little bit on the unpopular side. I think he's more a pretender. He has some fast cars there. He just can never close the deal. This year, just missed out the Fast 12, so I know there's a lot of fans still love to see him get that win. But I just think overall, it always seems somebody, where Chip Ganassi Racing, Andretti Autosport, Penske, just seems to have a little bit more than Ed Carpenter Racing. Ryan's VK, I think, is their best shot at a win for Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed Carpenter, I think he's going to be a solid top 10 if he has a good race, but I just don't see him being a contender for the win.
Well, let's see. 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. I wonder if that rings the bell for some race fans. This is Ed Carpenter's 20th Indianapolis 500. He's won multiple poles here in the past. His team always shows speed, like you mentioned, Joe. I'm going to respectfully disagree. I think Ed Carpenter is absolutely a contender. He's just missed out on the Fast 12. And I think every year we come to the Speedway, there's at least 20 cars that you can look at them and say, if the cards fall their way, if they play their cards right, if everything goes according to plan and they get a good run, they can win this race. Ed Carpenter is certainly no exception to that. And you want to talk about somebody that might retire if they win this race. We were talking about Tony Kanaan a little bit earlier in the show. I know Ed Carpenter's in his early 40s now. He's been at this for a long time. He's been an oval-only driver for years, very involved with the ownership side of things, obviously. If he wins this race, this might be enough for him. I think he might take a step back and be satisfied with his career. But I know this is certainly a bucket list item for him. Again, probably not my pick to win the race, but you can't count ECR out, and that includes the boss man, Ed Carpenter himself. I think he certainly has a shot at taking the win today.
And before we move on, got some comments in the chat room. Upright Fossil says, you're here after a predictable Monaco Grand Prix. Yeah, another Max Verstappen victory, but at least the rain added some entertainment there towards the very end, so thankful for that. And you say you'll go ahead and jinx Palou for the month of May doubles. So that's your pickle winner for today. And yeah, 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. I definitely don't disagree. If we see Ed Carpenter in victory lane today, he'd probably retire right on the spot there, because this is the one race he's wanted to win more than any. And what perfect way to retire than to go out on top. Ed Carpenter is certainly going to have a really fast Chevrolet, and if he's there at the end, I think certainly Ed could potentially get the job done. And Connor Daly, his teammate, is another local favorite at Indy and starting 16th. One of the 13 American drivers who are in the field. Ryan Hunter-Reyes on row 6 with fellow Americans Joseph Newgarden and Connor Daly on All-American row 6 there. And Marco Andretti and Alexander Rossi are also some notable Americans. Ben, comparing all the American drivers, which one has the best shot at winning today?
Man, if Connor Daly wins this race, I've got a feeling you're not going to be able to hear the roar of the engines over the crowd. I think that's going to be a very popular win for everybody at IMS today. But, looking at the Americans that we just mentioned here, I'd throw Santino Ferrucci in there as well. I think AJ Foyt Racing has shown a lot of speed this month, like we were talking about earlier in the show. But, I know Alexander Rossi has been so desperate to win it again. I think he kind of, like I was mentioning earlier in the show, he came in, still wondering if he maybe wanted to be in Formula One long term, and won the race very unexpectedly. And really, I think got a lot of criticism for not showing more emotion in victory lane. He said, I didn't know how much milk I was supposed to drink. He was really just starstruck and didn't really know what to do. I think if he wins the race again, you're going to see a lot more personality and excitement come out from Alexander Rossi. I know he's been desperate to win this race again ever since he first won it in 2016. So McLaren have the speed, obviously, with all 4 of their cars. I think Rossi might be the best suited of the drivers we just mentioned to get the win today.
Yeah, I'm looking at Alexander Rossi as well, too, out of all the American drivers. Maybe Joseph Newgarden, if he has that good, clean start as well and work his way towards the front. But with Alexander Rossi, he has it easy. He's already towards the front. Stay up there, gain some position on the pit stops, or make those passes and just stay up front. For Joseph Newgarden, he's going to have to work his way towards the front. But I think those are the 2 Americans that I see potentially that could get up towards the front and contend for the win. So overall, it's going to be a very exciting Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be an exciting Indy 500. I think we're going to see some great racing today. As I mentioned, the weather conditions overcast, not too hot out there. Exactly what this oval package needs to put on a really great show. A lot of great American drivers to choose from. But if I had to pick one, I know we just talked about it. I think Joseph Newgarden, he'd probably be my pick to be the top American driver to potentially win this race. But can't count out Santino Ferrucci either. I'm very tempted to pick Santino for pick a winner later on in the show, because that would be a dark horse, underdog, a feel good story for AJ Foyt Racing. And there's certainly a lot of great storylines to follow today. And one storyline that we're going to talk about next, starting here with Joe, is a team that's been struggling so far this season.
Yeah, a team that has been struggling, Marashank Racing, just not having a good year really at all. Upright Fossil, what's exciting about this race, the unpredictability. Little guy teams actually have a good shot at winning. Of course, AJ Foyt, that's one of the little teams. A lot of people will also consider Marashank Racing not exactly one of the big teams, but this year, they just have not been there at all. Just no luck. Bad luck, the controversy over at IMSA with the Rolex 24 hours. Marashank Racing, Simon Pagino starting 22nd, and his teammate, Helio Castro Neves, starting way back. Just not a good race at all coming, I think, for that team. Only one top 10 finish for Helio at Texas Motor Speedway earlier this year. So it was on an oval, but of course, very different compared to the Indianapolis 500 oval, where they're going to be running 500 miles. Ben, starting with you, when it comes to Marashank Racing and today's race, would a top 10 finish be a good day, or is it still the only goal? Go out there, get the win, especially for Helio.
Well, if we still had double points, I think a top 10 would be a good day. It would maybe get the season back on track, but we don't have double points this year. And even if we did, to be honest, I think if you're Elio, it's win or bust at this point. The drive for 5 is still what's keeping him here in this series, doing what he loves to do so very much. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he got a top 10 last year, right? And, it doesn't really satisfy much of anything for him. The only reason Elio's here is to win and to break that record that he currently shares with 3 legends of this sport. So I've got to say, on paper, certainly top 10, it's a good payday. It might be a good momentum boost. But in reality, I think the only goal, especially for Elio, is to win this race.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that at all, Ben. I certainly think that, as you were saying, that's the only reason why Elio is still really in this series. And all the other races on the schedule, is great to see Elio still back in the paddock competing at his older age now. But the Indy 500, this is the one that really matters the most. And at the end of the day, Elio, as you mentioned, he's going to try to complete the drive for 5. Will Elio be able to do that this year? I'm not so sure if Meyer Shank will have the pace, but who knows? Maybe they'll get their car dialed in for the race and have a good day. Considering how this season's been going for the team, a top 10 would be really good for the morale throughout the entire organization with either car or both. That would be a really good thing for them to try to get some momentum going, because it's been a really hard year for both Castroneves and Simon Pagenaud.
Yeah, rough year for both of them. Top 10 things, I think, will go a long way in rebuilding that confidence. We could go out there, we could win, but I still think they're going to have a lot of challenges, especially in the following races. One team, speaking about challenges and a miserable month of May, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. I think if they got a top 10 finish, all their cars, they'll be over the moon excited after what happened with Bump Day, where there are 3 full-time drivers all competing on Bump Day. He occupied the last row with Christian Lundgaard, who was there, being bumped up. Jack Harvey, now 32nd because of Graham Rahal being in essentially another car, but not a Rahal Letterman Lanigan car. So, Kobe, if we see the Rahal Letterman Lanigan cars in the top 10, would that be redemption for them? Or is the redemption really next year's Indy 500? Because this is not the first time we're seeing Rahal Letterman Lanigan in the back row.
I mean, if they can get just one Rahal Letterman Lanigan car in the top 10, I think that would be a miracle, because they haven't even been in the same zip code as the top 10 during the month of May. It's been a really difficult month for this team. Texas Motor Speedway went really bad for them during the first oval race of the season, and they've been bad during the month of May. So I think if they can just get one car in the top 10, that would be like winning the Indy 500, considering how tough that they've been. I would actually be very surprised if RLO can get one of their cars in the top 10 of this year's Indianapolis 500. I think right now the best thing that they're probably going to be able to do is try to salvage today as much as possible. Maybe we'll see some attrition and they can get a lot better finish than they probably expected today. But I think right now, in terms of the Indianapolis 500, have to take what you learned this year and start focusing on next.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the opposite of what we just talked about. I think for Shank, despite the fact that they've been kind of on the back foot this month, you're still really just looking at them winning the race. That's the ultimate goal, especially for Helio Castroneves. Whereas for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing here, I think anything you can salvage from this month, a top 10 certainly would be an incredible result based on where they were in qualifying. And again, I know qualifying speeds aren't always indicative of what the race pace is going to be, but I just don't see a Rahal car getting up there and mixing it up for the win, unless they go really off sequence, if it turns into a fuel mileage race or an economy run or something like that, or they work some strategy and end up in the front of the pack with just a handful of laps to go. That's really the only way I see Rahal Letterman being up there contending for a top 10 spot. But they certainly have a mountain to climb. I know they're up to the challenge, and you certainly can't question Jack Harvey's character after how he bumped his way back into this race. But it is certainly a mountain to climb for them, and I think top 10 it's a goal worth shooting for, but it's going to be very hard for this team to get there based on what we've seen from them this month.
If any of them were to get in the top 10, job well done. But I think they're still going to be looking at this was just a bad month of May. Redemption is really the next year coming back to Indy 500 and not having any of their vehicles not qualified for this race. Just a tough break. Now, the lead driver for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan when this race starts, Catherine Legg, back in the Indianapolis 500 for the third time in her career. The last time was 2013 with a 26th place finish. She has been all over media because she is the fastest female driver to qualify, 231 miles per hour. However, we know it's been a challenging road, not just for her, but a lot of female drivers, because in 2020, when we had no female drivers in the field, that was the first time since 1991 we didn't have anyone attempt to go in the race. And then, of course, later on from 99 all the way up to 2020 is when we had females in the field. Beretta Autosports, they were in the field in 2021 with Simona de Silvestro, but not 2022. So overall, we're seeing where it seems like the consistency of having a female racer in the field has sort of dropped from 1999 to 2019. Now, Ben, I know you occasionally are on the Women Motorsports program. We see programs like the W Series, F1 try to get more females attention. We know Indy, they're trying to be more diverse too. NASCAR drives for diversity. Do you feel there needs to be more of an effort for potentially IndyCar to see more females on the tracks rather than just leaving it to the teams and hopefully one of them have a female racer at the 500?
Yeah, I think so. And I've got to say, it's a little disappointing. I think back to the first 500 that I ever watched, it was in 2007. There were 3 women in the field that day. Now, I know that Milka Duno came under a lot of criticism from everybody from Robin Miller to Ashley Judd about how slow she was. And, maybe you could say she made her debut a little bit too prematurely. I know she was able to pick up the pace a little bit in 2008 and beyond. But the reality of it is, that was 16 years ago that we had 3 women starting in this race for the first time. And then in 2010, we had 4 women starting in the race: Simona Di Silvestro, Anna Beatrice, Danica Patrick, and Sarah Fisher. And Milka Duno was a 5th woman who failed to qualify for the event that year. But the fact that we've gone from 5 women trying to qualify for this race in 2010, over a decade ago, to the last couple of years, it's been a question. Maybe we have 1 woman coming back into the field, Catherine Legg, this year. Simona came back in 21. I feel like there's been a lot of efforts that have been made, and I think those are great. But the reality is we haven't seen the results or those things coming to fruition here. It would be great to see more women in this race, and it's unfortunate Catherine Legg is the only one this year. And I also have to say it's very unfortunate that she has come under the criticism that she's had to deal with based on what happened in practice on Monday earlier this week with Stephen Wilson. It's very disheartening to see that so many fans are still stuck in the 60s and 70s when women were still just trying to so much as gain access to Gasoline Alley, and wanting to go back to a time where the idea was this is a race for men and men only. It's been very unfortunate to see what she's had to deal with. And that would be true even if she were 100% at fault for the accident. I don't think she was. I don't think very many people who know this sport inside and out think that she was. But to sum it all up, bring it back here, I think that, it's been great to see the women that we've seen over the last several years competing at IMS, and great to see Catherine Legg back out there again this year. But again, I think it's kind of a shame when you look at the progress, the very real progress that has been made, and the progress that we should be proud of. The turn of the late 2000s, early 2010s, it really looks like we've taken a step back. And unfortunately, I think we have, only having 1 woman in the race this year, not having a couple of times in the last couple of years here. I think certainly we could use some more efforts being put forward, certainly by IndyCar themselves, to try to bring more women to IMS and competing in this great race.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see more women in the race moving forward in future. You got Jamie Chadwick, who's in Indy next right now. No, it's been a really tough rookie year for her, but that's to be expected of a lot of rookies in Indy next. It's typically the second and if you're lucky to get a third year is when you really need to judge the overall performance. So basically this year, Jamie Chadwick is just learning this new style of racing, and starting in year 2, I think that's when we'll get a better representation of what Jamie Chadwick is going to be capable of on the road to Indy. And it would be really great to see her in the Indianapolis 500 either next year or the year after that, depending on how everything goes in the next. And Ben, I have to agree with you. It's been really sad to see how people have said all these really nasty things about Catherine Legg online, like of how she can't drive, she don't deserve to be there, and like you're saying, these people who are making these comments, they're living in old America, the awful culture we had back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even if like you're saying, even if Catherine Lake was at fault in this accident, although she wasn't, it all of this stuff is just unnecessary, and all for those people, all Catherine Legg has to do is just show up and race, and they're going to have a problem with that. But Catherine is strong. She's a really good driver, and heck, she was the only one of her teammates to lock herself into the Indy 500, while all the other full timers had to go to the last row shootout. And to be away from the speedway for an entire decade and to come back and do as well as she's done, she deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, that was the thing. The Ray Hall, Lerman, Langan, the full-time teams, full-time drivers, nothing. Catherine Lake comes out, gets in the field, didn't have to worry about trying to get in. Comment in the chat from Dan Perry. Looks like you're going with Helio for the win. We encourage you. Be sure to subscribe because we're going to be recapping this race Monday. So definitely be sure to follow us right here on YouTube. Speaking about rookies, as you were talking about, Kobe, there's here 4 rookies in the field. We mentioned Benjamin Peterson, the only rookie to get in the Fast 12. Stingray Robb was in bump day. He survived. RC Anderson, many thought this team would not get in, that they were going to be in bump day. They made it in. And Augustine Canapino, 26, Juncos Hollinger Racing. They've been struggling a bit at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, just not having the speed they were hopeful for. So they are towards the back. Kobe, when it comes to the rookies, I don't anticipate any of them to be a favorite to go out there and win the race. 8 times we've seen a rookie win the Indianapolis 500. But are there any that really stands out to watch today? And do you have any as a shot at the top 10?
I'm not sure if we're going to see a rookie finish in the top 10 of this race, but it may surprise you. But I think the one rookie who's been a standout to me, although he qualified deep in the field, I'm continuing to be impressed by Augustine Canapino. He's looked really good in practice. I know Juncos didn't really have the speed for qualifying, but race-wise, it seemed like Juncos got Canapino's number 78 Chevrolet in the colors of Argentina's flag. That car is really fast, and it would not surprise me if we see Canapino at the very least finish inside the top 20. It's been amazing considering the background that he's had in his racing career, racing in touring cars in Argentina, no open wheel experience to come over here. I know he had a really good race at Texas Motor Speedway, his very first time ever been on an oval track, and did a really good job. He's been doing a good job during the month of May, never put a wheel wrong, and Canapino continues to be a rookie that's been impressing us all year long.
Yeah, I've been impressed by Canapino as well, but I've really certainly been impressed by AJ Foyt Racing. And so I think if you want to talk about a rookie that has a shot at the top 10 today, you got to look at the driver that made it to the Fast 12, and that's Benjamin Peterson, just outside the top 10 there in P11. I think the Foyt cars have shown a lot more speed than people were anticipating. I think he's got the best shot of a top 10 out of all the rookies today. Stingray Robb starting at the back of the pack that far. I'd be impressed if he could drive this way up to the field that much, but I just don't see it happening with that Rick Ware partner in entry. RC Anderson here with a brand new team. They've already won just getting into this race and not even having to go through the last row shootout. That's a tremendous result for that team already. But I think that, just anything that they can do up in the top 20, top 15 is going to be a tremendous result for them. I don't see them getting much further than that as a single car after their first time here. But Canapino as well, Kobe, like you mentioned, been very impressed with him. Wouldn't put a top 10 past him. It's going to depend on how much speed Juncos Hollinger Racing has in that car. But you're right. He has not put a wheel wrong all month, and that's been very impressive to see.
Yeah, Canapino overall, good month of May. Season's been pretty good. 19th in the points. I think he'll love to get a top 10 finish. I think he's going to be one of the drivers from the rookie class that I'll be seeing how his progress is doing if he could get to the top 10. Benjamin Peterson, pretty simple. Stay up towards the front. Don't get nervous, especially if we're going through green flag pit cycles. When you fall back to 15th, 20th, because as that cycle works up, you get towards the front. Middle of the race, you get towards a little bit of midfield. You have a fast car. I think the big thing for him, just keep a cool head. Listen to that team as they work you throughout the race. Don't make a rookie mistake. I think you could be a solid contender for a top 10 finish. One driver I believe many are going to be watching in this race, especially if he gets near the top 10, Graham Rahal. Of course, Graham Rahal failed to qualify for the Indy 500 with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, and Honda engines. However, after Stefan Wilson got injured, he was called up to come race despite being a Honda driver because he's going to be driving a Chevrolet. It's been really interesting. Rahal is a longtime friend of the Wilson family, dating back to Justin Wilson in his early days of racing to now. Thankfully, Stefan had successful surgery and, in fact, was at the Speedway, so many are happy to see him back at the track. Rahal, they have some extra time to do a shakedown of that car, considering he had not raced it before. New chassis, 4 years old. But it's interesting with some of the conditions Rahal's going to have to face, not only on the track, but even off the track. He couldn't ask questions about the engine, the Chevrolet powertrain. We know Chevrolet, they're keeping it very secretive. They don't want Rahal to pick up some stuff. So even some of the terminology they're using, they're not saying it around Graham Rahal. So Ben, how hard is it for Graham Rahal to get the win in this race? And if somehow he was to win, just somehow if he was, what would this happen with the Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, Honda relationship, and now Chevrolet in the picture? Because now Chevrolet could say, we got Graham in victory lane. Honda didn't.
Well, Joe, I know I said earlier in the show, I think there's at least 20 cars that I think have a shot to win this race. I'm not sure Graham Rahal's one of them. And again, that's no disrespect. Any other year, where the Rahal team would have brought some speed to IMS, I think, absolutely they'd be contenders. But, just the last minute nature of this situation, being thrown into a car, but he's never driven before. And Graham said it himself. He's driven his entire career with Honda. If you want to be technical, I suppose he drove the Champ Car finale at Long Beach in 2008 with a Cosworth engine. That's the only time he's made an IndyCar Series start. And I guess his rookie Champ Car season as well as 07, if you want to lump that in together with the records. But for all intents and purposes, his entire IndyCar career has been Honda powered. So this is a brand new environment for him. Like you mentioned, Joe, he's not even allowed to ask all the questions that a normal driver would be able to ask of their engineers. I just think he's got too high of a mountain to climb. And then you've got all the emotions as well. I mean, it's great that Stefan Wilson is at the track today and had a successful surgery, but I'd imagine it's still got to be very hard for Graham, being up to this challenge here of stepping in and filling in admirably. He's done a great job so far. But winning this race, I think it's just a mountain a little bit too high to climb for Graham today. Now, we've said that before at IMS. We've been pleasantly surprised by some shock winners in the past. So if Graham Rahal is somehow drinking the milk at the end of today, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. This is a guy that's been rumored to maybe be wanting to step back to a part-time schedule or an Indy 500 only schedule. He's maybe considered leaving his family team over the last couple of years if they can't get their program together. If he wins in a Chevy engine, that certainly, I think, would open some doors potentially to some more opportunities for him. Or maybe he reunites with Honda and, the family team finds their footing again and they go on from there as they probably would have otherwise. But, I think it's probably going to be too much of a stretch to say he could win this race today, all things considered. But if he does, it opens up a world of possibilities. And we've seen stranger things happen in IMS before. So who knows what's going to happen? I guess we'll find out in about 3.5 or 4 hours.
Yeah, for sure, Ben. And in less than an hour until the green flag drops for the 107th run of the Indianapolis 500, I do think it's going to be a hard mountain to climb for Graham Rahal to try to get this win. I think Ryan Reinbold has a really fast piece, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to try to get up there and win this race on a Ryan Reinbold car. Like you said, stranger things have happened. If it's a field mileage race and he's hitting the numbers correctly and Graham's at the right place in the right time, who knows what could happen here. But starting deep in the field, it's going to be difficult passing, getting up through the field. But Graham Rahal, he's no stranger to starting from the very back of the field and try to come towards the front. In 2011, when he drove for Chip Ganassi Racing, he started 30th on the grid, ended up finishing on the podium there. 2018 started 30th, drove his way all up into the top 10 to get a strong finish there. So Graham knows how to go from the back of the field towards the front. But I think today, given the last minute nature of this situation, it's going to be really difficult for him to try to get up there and have a strong result for Dry and Rumble. But never say never. We've seen some really strange things happen, and if he ends up having a really great day with Chevrolet and all of that, I know we already talked about what would this potentially do for his racing career, but I certainly have to agree. I think it would open up some more doors for him potentially down the road if he decides to leave RLL to go on the other side and drive a Chevrolet in the future, or maybe another opportunity at a Honda teams, which that will probably have openings next year, like Chip Ganassi Racing or Andretti Autosport.
The openings, the possibilities, if he was to get this win, because I think that would just seem like something out of a movie, considering it looked like he was out, get back in, everything, the complications, same time with Honda Chevrolet and getting to victory lane with the Chevy. One of the things I think, if he was to have a strong performance or even somehow pull off a win, I think he might be even more motivated to bring a lot of the attention to Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, and potentially put himself in a role for part-time season, but then have a management role within the family team. A lot of potential there. A couple of comments in the chat room, starting with Upright Fossil. I treat my picks like the other Triple Crowns. I pick fundamentals and style. So Ganassi Racing, McLaren, and then some of the long shots like Floyd Carpenter Racing. We know driver intros is going on, so big cheer went out for Catherine. That's very exciting to hear. Not a big cheer for the 78, but a big cheer for already. Definitely the crowd, of course, has some big favors as well, too, including Grosjean, Daly. We talked about this. If he is to win this race, like you said, Ben, we probably won't be able to hear the cars. In fact, the last lap, if he's leading it, just like how the fans were cheering J.R. Hildebrand, that's going to be even louder, I think. Just don't do what J.R. Hildebrand did. Ryan Hunter-Ray, one of the Americans we haven't talked about. I feel they got a sponsor with Root Insurance now. I just don't see that team being up there towards the front. Ed Carpenter, he's working his way. And then, of course, TK has to be he's always a favorite there. And Scott Dixon, a big cheer. Surprisingly, we haven't talked much about Scott Dixon, but I definitely think he's going to be a contender for the win because he really had this look like in the bag last year, and then that penalty ruined his race, was done for. So when that said, we talked about Scott Dixon was done for. His chance of winning was gone. Ben, time for pick a winner and for all of us to share who we think is going to win the 107th Indy 500.
That's right, Joe. I just want to say real quick, I was encouraged to see J.R. Hildebrand's Twitter thread that he put out. We missed seeing him at the Speedway this year as a driver. His first time in, I guess, really his entire career, but he hasn't come back to be able to find an opportunity to run this race. But he sounds like he's working hard on the program for next year, so hopefully he'll get another shot at that one that got away in 2011, one that the late, great Dan Weldon came through to steal at the very end on the last lap there. But let's talk about who's going to win today here in 2023. Get your name on the leaderboard. Make your picks in the chat room. I'm 1 for 1 so far today. I got Max Verstappen at Monaco. I've got Kyle Larson winning what's hopefully going to be tonight at Charlotte. We'll see if the weather holds out. But for the Indianapolis 500, I feel like I pick him every year. I feel like he's a favorite every year. And I still cannot believe that the 2008 Triumph is his only Indianapolis 500-mile race that he's won. It's one of the all-time greats of the sport. I'm going with Scott Dixon to finally close the deal and get number 2 today.
Scott Dixon, good pick. I know I've been thinking long and hard about this. I think it's going to happen. I think Alex Palou is going to win the Indy 500, leave here with the points lead. That team is just running really good. I don't see him making a mistake, but anything could happen in this race. That's why we run all 500 miles.
Yeah, and I have to agree with Joe. I'm going with the pole sitter, Alex Palou, to win the 107th Indianapolis 500 as well. It's amazing how well that this number 10 team is running right now. Yeah, they can put together a complete race like we know they know how to do. I don't see why they can't get the job done and see Palou drinking the milk in victory lane. We saw how excited he was winning the pole. He showed a lot of genuine emotion. Imagine what the celebration is going to be like if he wins the 500. I think that would be a really, really big party and a lot of chicken tonight being eaten in Indianapolis. So I know that's his victory celebration. I love to go find a place to eat some fried chicken.
Joe, I just want to say one thing real quick before we sign off. I remember watching the pre-race show yesterday. I think you and Amanda brought this name up. I don't know if we've said it once during this entire pre-race show, and it's kind of surprising to me. Takuma Sato. I think that's a dark horse pick. I'm sticking with Dixon for my pick a winner, but Sato's got a great car. That Ganassi team is firing on all cylinders as they always do. And we know Takuma Sato, no attack, no chance. He's going to be up there contending as well. I think that's an excellent dark horse pick. And Amanda threw out there yesterday as well. So I think Ganassi, certainly the team to beat along with McLaren, but I'm going to stick with Dixon as my official pick a winner.
Yeah, Sato, don't count him out. I mean, Amanda picked him for pick a winner. I think that's a great pick. Chip Ganassi Racing, so you know it's going to be a fast Honda. He's going to go for the win all out, and he's not afraid if it's the last lap to try to make a daring move. So if he's in the top 2 or 3 in the closing laps, watch out. Sato can easily be contending for the win. A couple last comments. So for betting purposes, I would put my long shot over 2 favorites if there was been 2 faves. Hammer Ferrucci, Palou, and VK for a win to bet. We know there's going to be a lot of folks betting on the Indy 500, and definitely encourage everyone to keep commenting with who you think is going to win. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all social media, where every week we post our pick a winner. You can get on the leaderboard, so your name will be on the air if you are scoring and participating in pick a winner. Another way you can get your name on the board, through our Patreon call-in show, Mark and Robin. They invest in us each and every month. David, our newest member, you too can invest in us. Link in the video description. Get your name on the board, and we read your name on the air. And if you buy us coffee, we'll thank you on the air. You could buy it one time or multiple times. I see some people have done 3 or 2 cups. You could even buy a cup of coffee for a particular on-air personality, because we all love doing this and definitely will love the support from you all. Of course, Indy 500 is coming up. Then we have the Coca-Cola 600. Then Monday, we're going to have a lot of motorsports to recap. Hopefully, the Coke 600 and everything will be all wrapped up. Then later on, we're going to have Grid Encore. Then another day on Wednesday, Grid Tonight, followed by Women in Motorsports on Friday. And then we do this all over again with a very special Saturday Grid Life pre-race, where we're going to be also previewing the NASCAR Xfinity Series in our backyard here at Portland. So big week for the Grid Network. We encourage everyone to subscribe. Don't miss anything. For Kobe Lambeth at the podium finish and Ben Schneider, I'm Joe Samaniego. We'll leave with the starting lineup of the Indianapolis 500, voiced by Joshua Birch.
Here's the starting grid for the 107th running of the Indy 500. Alex Palou takes pole position for the first ever time. Alongside him is Venus Rique and Felix Rosenquist on the first row of the grid. Row 2 sees Santino Ferrucci in the number 14 start 4th. Pato O'Ward starts in 5th position as well. And Scott Dixon, who won this race back in 2008, starts in 6th position. Watch out for this row as well. We could be seeing the winner from row number 2. Row 3 sees Alexander Rossi, Takuma Sato and Tony Kanaan. All winners previously of the Indy 500 as well. Tony Kanaan making his final start in this race. Watch out for Sato and Rossi on the charge late in the race. Row 4 sees Marcus Ericsson, last year's winner, start in 10th. Benjamin Pedersen is 11th, and Will Power starts back in 12th position. A poor show from the Penske's as well in qualifying. He's on a fight-back charge. Row 5 sees Ed Carpenter in his 20th appearance at this race. Alongside him is Scott McLaughlin in 14th. Kyle Kirkwood lines up 15th on the grid as well for Andretti, looking to bounce as well from an earlier season win in Long Beach. Row 6 sees Connor Daly start 16th. Joseph Newgarden starts in 17th, way out of position and looking to make a charge. Ryan Hunter-Reay starts 18th on the grid as well in the number 23 as he makes his one only race appearance of the year. Row 7 sees Romain Grosjean out of position again in 19th as well. Helio Castroneves starts 20th as well as he goes for a 5th win here at the Brickyard. Colton Herta no longer with Brian Herta this weekend. Paul qualifies 21st. Row 8 sees Simon Pagenaud in 22nd, David Malukas is in 23rd, and Marco Andretti lines up 24th on the grid. On row 9, again, some surprising appearances as well late on in the qualifying format. Devlin DiFrancesco, home as well. Everybody loving this guy back home. It's Agustin Canapino, the young Argentine driver in 26th. Callum Milot, battling away in qualifying as well, only managed 27th position. 10th row of the grid sees RC Anderson 28th, Catherine Legg, the fastest ever woman in history here at the Brickyard, 231 miles per hour, 29th. Christian Longard starts 30th as well in the number 45. On row 11, the last row of the grid and making bump day was Stingray Rob and Jack Carvey. With Stefan Wilson crashing, it is now back in the race, 33rd and last for Graham Rahal.